Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 10 of the Jiu-Jitsu Times podcast. Double digits, baby. We're still here. 100 more episodes, 1,000 more episodes. We're never going away. I am Kevin Bradley, joined as always by my co-host Kevin Gallagher, still with more beard. And today we are joined by, you could say a lot about this guy, multiple-time EBI veteran, long-time Eddie Bravo black belt, but I'm just going to say he is a man with the absolute coolest jiu-jitsu move known to man named after him. He is cool, he is smooth, he is pretty. Nathan Orchard. Nate, thanks for coming on the show, man.
On, guys?
Quick
side note. It's very coincidental that our 10th episode happens to have a 10th Planet black belt and a 10th Planet standout on it, Mr. Nathan.
I noticed it. I noticed it.
Illuminati confirmed.
No details are overlooked on this show.
It's cyclical, man.
That's right.
Yeah, but how are you doing, man? Thank you for coming on the show.
Good.
Now,
glad to be here. Good, man. Just grinding away. Just keeping it going.
You get any rounds in today? You do any practice?
You know what? I was actually on daddy duty this morning, taking care of my little girl. So I got my rounds coming tonight.
Oh man! So how old is your daughter?
She is now almost 8 months old. So that's pretty crazy.
So she's just getting started.
It's been blowing by. It's awesome though.
So she's just getting started with scissor
sweeps
and
actually
go-go platas.
That's right. Yeah, I actually just brought her to the gym and had her on the mats for the first time pretty recently. So that was cool. It was actually like a pretty special moment for me, as silly as it may sound, but like, I don't know, hopefully she's got a little bit of a future in jiu-jitsu too. So that was fun.
It's cool when I see coaches bringing their small children in and realize that, like, wow, that child doesn't really even appreciate the amount of knowledge that could be passed on to them from a very basic early age and move on. She'll probably learn more about jiu-jitsu, like, despite herself, than me and you will ever know about jiu-jitsu over the course of the next 18 years.
No
She'll
doubt.
probably be like, Jesus, Dad, leave me alone. Right.
Yeah, it's just going to come naturally, hopefully, just because she'll be around it and see it and stuff like that. So
that's cool.
I don't know. I got a 6-year-old stepson who's training too, and he's really liking it. So it's kind of in the family now. I have 2 little sisters that train, so it's like what we do,
That's awesome, man. Jiu-jitsu is definitely a family art, man. It's very cool to see the way it blooms out. What I notice a lot that I feel like in general, that the 10th Planet system has done such a good job of marketing at that, when I go, every time I've been to a 10th Planet gym, I've been to, Hollywood one. I went to the one that I think Brian Brown's got a gym here. I went to Boogie School out in San Diego. You guys have an uncanny ability to be able to market that family atmosphere too. Like it's really is a very welcoming, family-oriented place that has everyone come in and want to be a part of it. Every 10th Planet gym I went to I really noticed that.
Well, man, I think, it all comes from the top. Like Eddie Bravo, man, that's just his style, and he's a super down to earth and like inclusive person. So, I mean, it just really spreads to everyone else from there, from the top down. So,
yeah, man, I noticed that immediately about Eddie Bravo when I met him. Yeah, he has kind of the Eddie Bravo aura that floats around him.
I don't know if you guys.
Sorry, everybody. There was a myriad of audio technical difficulties that we just had to deal with, but we are back. Nate is still here, and he still wants to be our friend.
Testament to the joy and the power of jiu-jitsu, guys.
Yeah. Just stupid headphones. You know how it is.
Yeah. So Nate, we were in the middle of talking about kids raising a family in jiu-jitsu. If you wanted to continue off of that a little bit.
Oh, well, the last thing I remember saying before we got cut out there was that it comes from the top down. Eddie Bravo is the type of guy. He's just super down to earth, cool guy. And that's how, it's kind of bled into the culture of just 10th Planet overall, so
Right.
if 10th Planet's a bunch of cool people, it's probably because of Eddie Bravo.
Yeah, I was very impressed with Eddie when I met him. He's he he has an appearance of this LA kind of mover and shaker, but when you meet him, he really is such a humble, nice guy, listens to you talk, is legitimately interested in what you have to say and things like that. And he doesn't have to be, you know what I mean? And it's a cool thing to see someone like that be that grounded. I remember when I was at the Hollywood gym a couple years ago, and I was training, and at the end of the night, he mopped his own mats, and I just thought that was like, this is Eddie Bravo. The guy probably owns 300 gyms, internationally. He's staying at the end of his own gym to mop his own mats. You know what I mean? Like, that's something. Taught a class. You know what I mean? Like a really cool class. Yeah. So that's cool. That's the one thing. That's what I noticed. We were talking a little bit about family and things like that, and I noticed that the 10th Planet system that they really understand how to make jiu-jitsu a very family-oriented thing, and I think their systems and the way they teach, and it's very, very, I don't want to say like dummy-proof, but very, very user-friendly and systematic. It works well for that stuff.
Yeah, it's cool. Lucky to be a part of it, really.
Yeah.
It's given me the life that I have, and so I'm super grateful just for 10th Planet and Eddie Bravo and all of it, man. It's been amazing for me.
Yeah, Eddie is doing big things, and it's arguable, people can say what they want to say, but like Eddie Bravo and Gordon Ryan are probably the two most influential figures in what has become jiu-jitsu's kind of renaissance days. You know what I mean? Like the recent explosion of jiu-jitsu can almost be directly linked back to Eddie Bravo doing EBIs, and then Gordon Ryan dominating them all, and what I'm on, and then and here we are now. So
no, for sure, man, you're not wrong there. Definitely two massively influential people. So it's pretty amazing to be like a part of jiu-jitsu at this time. Like it's a really cool time for jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm enjoying it. I haven't competed as nearly as much as you have, but I've done a few cool things, and it's cool. Like I was on Kasai, you know what I mean? Like it's cool. Like I was like, oh shit, like this is a really cool thing that I'm doing because I train jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? Like
Kevin Gallagher is a pretty cool guy.
No, it was pretty cool, man. You know what I mean? What do you think about some things in the future of jiu-jitsu and in its advancement? One of the things I want to try to get into about, because I know this is one of your specialties, is combat jiu-jitsu, and I want to talk about how you feel the addition of combat jiu-jitsu has been successful, been unsuccessful, things that could have been done differently, things that you feel like are working correctly, and how that factors into where you feel jiu-jitsu in the future is heading.
Yeah, well, I mean, for one, it's first off entertaining to people, especially that are not super familiar with jiu-jitsu anyway. So it appeals to just kind of like anyone, because people enjoy watching someone get slapped around a little bit. Like I came from MMA. I had 21 MMA fights before I decided to jump into jiu-jitsu. So it's, I don't know, like it's definitely not as intimidating as MMA, having to think about knees or elbows and punches and kicks and stuff, just open hands. But I definitely think that it does bring a different style to it, as far as like, you can't play quite as silly of stuff as jiu-jitsu, just pure jiu-jitsu allows you to do. You have to tighten it up a little bit, stay a little bit smarter, a little bit more aware. And you got to move a lot more. That's for sure. In combat jiu-jitsu, it's not quite as static.
Yeah, you can't sit in one spot and kind of wait for things to develop like you might be able to do in a jiu-jitsu match, because you're gonna get smacked in the face. You have to continue to move and stuff like that. Yeah. One thing I'll just ask you, I'm only asking this because I've had mixed opinions about combat jiu-jitsu over the years. I can remember when it first came out, I shared your thoughts on, well, this is something that you don't have to be versed in jiu-jitsu to really get into, because the smacks, and then you can get into the general idea, strategy and stuff. And that's what take something from where we're at now to like the next level when you have people that don't necessarily understand jiu-jitsu that can, enjoy it. And then you end up on some kind of ESPN channel or something like that. And so in the beginning stages, I thought combat jiu-jitsu kind of brought that to the table. What I've noticed throughout the course of it is that it's become some kind of an odd hybrid that is not quite as entertaining of either of the two elements of which it's a hybrid of. You know what I'm talking about? Like it's not really as cool as MMA because, smacks are deterrents, but they're not really, very few people are going to end a fight with a TKO. Sorry, Nathan. Didn't mean to bring it up. I just said that and didn't realize it as I was saying it. But,
it's cool.
Yeah. But and then you have the elements of jiu-jitsu. And when you think about sometimes the guys that want to turn it into an MMA fight and use the strikes to think about it as in terms of a TKO, then they quit trying to implement jiu-jitsu. So when I think combat jiu-jitsu's initial phrase was to come up with an idea of something that could say, hey, look, I can throw these little strikes and then use these strikes to advance my position and continue to gain more a better advantageous jiu-jitsu position and a submission, blah, 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 blah. What it's turned into is, dudes smacking each other and trying to like go for the smacks.
To be fair, when you think about, like, I remember one of the first pieces of advertisement that Eddie ever put out for combat jiu-jitsu was like something along the lines of, what the gentle art could use more of? Violence. I think I get that he wanted to shake things up, and obviously not everything is going to work out 100% the way you want it, but it's in those at-bats that you find innovation.
And I'm perfectly cool with that. Like I get the idea. I was all behind the marketing and everything that was going into it. And I could understand Eddie's intent of what he was trying to put out there. The only thing I'm saying is I feel like sometimes it fell a little bit short of the mark, and we've ended up with what we've ended up with. What do you think about that, Nate? I'm just curious as to your point of view on that.
No, I mean, personally, man, like, I'll be real. Like, I like pure EBI better.
Right.
And I think it's just, I guess, more what I love. It's jiu-jitsu. It's clean. It's fast. It's just jiu-jitsu. You throw in the slaps, and I mean, if you think about it, you don't see very many significant strikes at all. Like, even whatever, say what you want. Wagner finished me with a TKO or whatever, but like, there was no blood. It didn't hurt. Like I said, I've been in MMA fights. Like, the reason it got stopped is because it looked bad. Right. But as far as
and there's the rules of safety involved, unanswered strikes and blah blah blah. Yeah. But there was exactly. I get your point.
Look, if Wagner was throwing punches, there's a good chance I'd be knocked out. But the slaps, it was like kind of silly in a way.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if you look at significant strikes, there's been some, but man, I'll tell you, I have thrown some of the hardest hits that we've seen in combat jiu-jitsu. Like, I hit Hunter Colvin so hard that I could still feel it in my hand. You know what I mean?
Right.
I smashed, and
you're a big, strong, physical guy too. Like watching you compete in the way you train. You're a big dude.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm long. I usually compete at 155. You know what I mean? So I'm like tall, sure, but no, I just know how to throw actual strikes.
Right.
Like, because of all my MMA, training. But you just don't see a lot of like everyone's just kind of like smacking each other. And that's not so realistic from my perspective. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, again, people just want to slap each other just to say they can, or just to say they did, but they're not the cleanest hits and they're not devastating at all, Right. So I don't know, man. Like, again, I'm a part of combat jiu-jitsu because I feel it's like my duty.
Right.
To do that for Eddie Bravo and for my team and for my own career. Like, it's still something. It's still cool
exposure. It's pretty good.
And good exposure. Right. But I mean, I can't lie. I love just pure EBI. That's how I feel.
So do you feel like I guess a couple ways we can take. Do you feel like that the combat jiu-jitsu is? Do you think that there is a place for the strikes to be able to advance positions? Do you feel like if more guys stay true to what maybe Eddie's intent was when he first formulated the rule set, that we would have a better functioning combat jiu-jitsu? Do you think there's any way that we can maybe change rules to make it that way, to save things?
I don't know. Man, it's just, to me, the more rules in any rule set,
right,
the more watered down it gets. Like, listen, man, my favorite rule set is no time limit.
Yeah.
Also, you know what I mean?
100%. I think that is the only true way to say, if you really want to say it, whose jiu-jitsu is the best. You know what I'm talking about? If you really want to say whose is the best, that's it.
Right? It's not spectator friendly.
Right. That's the problem too.
Right. But if we're talking pure jiu-jitsu, no time limit, submission only, that's the way to go. Beyond that, then you're just kind of creating whatever game you want to create.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And there are guys that will learn how to manipulate those rules, because anytime you have some kind of a foreseeable, formulated criteria for judgment, fight to win has submission attempts. So now if I just throw up 12 submission attempts, you know what I mean? Like, I might not have ever put you in danger, but because I continued to fire away, I win that match. And whose jiu-jitsu is really better if I never finish any of them and you catch me in one armbar at the end,
Totally.
Right.
No,
or a points match, and there are ways to tell you I am better at playing that game, but is my jiu-jitsu really better?
Yeah, truly. And again, like, if guys were really like striking in combat jiu-jitsu, like not just these little slaps that are kind of silly, it would definitely change things. But for the most part, like, I'm not even too worried about what most people can do. Now Wagner's also a super high level MMA fighter, right? So a little different. But like, when you get like a pure jiu-jitsu guy that goes in and has never thrown strikes in his life, it's a little bit ridiculous.
Right.
Right. They just don't know what they're doing.
They don't know what they're doing. Yeah, it's. Go ahead.
I think like a good example being that I forget who he was like rolling against, but Nick Pace, that like MMA fighter, Tiger Schulman guy, he was in one of the early combat combat jiu-jitsu tournaments, and the guy he was facing, it was a high level dude. He was throwing strikes, and but he didn't know how to maintain top position while throwing strikes effectively, and so it allowed Nick to like sort of weasel out of bad situations, and he ended up winning the match by like an upset. And a lot of people pointed to that as maybe these guys need more work with this rule set.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, but again, no one's trying to like master combat jiu-jitsu. You know, like,
it's an aside. You're like, oh, well, I've got this combat jiu-jitsu tournament. Let me train for it.
Totally.
Yeah, I train with Dan Martinez all the time. He's my dog, and like, we don't even, like, when he got ready for the Combat Worlds this last time, I don't think anybody was throwing strikes at him. We just did jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? Like, and
I don't do that either. Honestly, I don't practice slapping people. I might raise my hand up like I'm gonna slap someone, and I'm kind of joking, but like, I just, again, if once you know how to fight, you can like really fight. You can just apply techniques to whatever rule set without even necessarily practicing too much. Like, man, I could walk in the cage tomorrow and fight. You know what I mean? I could do just about any combat sport there is, just because I know how to think more than anything.
Which is also why, at the end of the day, like, jiu-jitsu trumps all of them. I mean, it's just, there's just jiu-jitsu is just, I've done all kind of shit, boxing, did a little kickboxing, I've been around, you know what I mean? Like, and jiu-jitsu still, and at its core, when we're talking about self-defense applications, because there is nothing at all that's the same as a street fight. Nothing, MMA fight. It's, things get closer and closer and closer, but there is nothing to what the real raw energy, quick application, do or die, 25-second spurt of a real life confrontation is going to be like. And jiu-jitsu across the board is always the greatest for that element. It's quick.
I would agree with you.
Yeah. Control, put them on the ground. They squirm a little bit. You put them to sleep, game over. 100%.
No, it's true.
Cool, man. So let's talk about
Nathan. Sorry. So I just wanted to get something in real quick. Nate, you've been doing, I think a few weeks ago you posted that it was your 6-year anniversary of getting your black belt, right? From Eddie Bravo.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I'm gonna just There we
Look
go.
at that technology.
Look at that handsome. Look at that
Imagine
handsome
that.
devil.
Look at that dude.
You and Gio got them at the same time, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, that's cool, man.
That's right.
Now,
What's it like?
what was it like?
Man, well, it's crazy. Definitely look back in hindsight, just because like Gio and I have kind of been leading the charge in 10th Planet. I mean, since this day, since the day we both got our black belts, him and I have both really been, some of the highest level guys. I mean, Gio has gone to ADCC, which I haven't done, but beyond that, we've both been really like leading the charge, and it's just like a cool coincidence that we both got it the same day, and then we both really were the tip of the spear for a long time. And I mean, honestly, man, I remember the day I got my blue belt. I could have died happy. You know what I mean? Like I thought that was it.
Blue belt was the coolest thing, dude.
And especially with a guy like Gio, man, it's like everything that I've dreamed up has come true, and then a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't even have the imagination to come up with also has happened. Like having a move named after me. Like who dreamed? You can't even think that up. You know what I mean?
Right. That's pretty cool, man.
Dude, it's very surreal.
Yeah, I can remember like back when competition jiu-jitsu was still, lame and little matches in dudes like auditoriums and freaking old gyms and shit that we had a Facebook stream on. There was no such thing as EBI or none of these amazing things on Fight Pass and shit you see now. And in those days, like you were on top of the food chain for a little while. You were definitely like the name on the block. I can remember seeing you come down here in Tampa in the Zapatero matches. You went against Craig Jones, right? Yeah, you had him in a triangle for like freaking 7 minutes or some shit like that.
He had me.
Oh, he had you. That's right. Then you heel hooked him.
I heel hooked him with 10 seconds left.
Yeah, I remember that. That's right. I remember that. Yeah. That was but this is cool back before when Gordon Ryan was a skinny freaking 17-year-old kid, like
he was so skinny.
He was so super skinny. He was super skinny. But it's cool. Like you were arguably, I personally feel like you were more recognizable than Gio in the beginning days. Like you were it. You were the freaking the 10th Planet freaking dude.
I was a black belt for like 3 months when EBI 1 happened.
Right.
So I was in EBI 1, 2, 3, 5, 11, 13 in combat jiu-jitsu, the first one, and then this, and a couple more. So I just honestly just had great timing. That's all.
How old are you, man, if you don't mind me asking you?
Oh yeah, I'm about to turn 32.
Oh, Jesus Christ. So you must have started training when you were what, 17, 18 years old? Like, seriously?
Well, yeah, I started wrestling when I was 12. I had my first MMA fight when I was 16.
Wow.
And I got armbarred, and that's when I really like started to delve into jiu-jitsu, which at that time there wasn't even YouTube.
God, that was a while ago too, man.
Oh,
what was
man.
that? What year was that? When did you
2004 was my first.
Wow, man. Yeah. Where are you from?
Wow.
Where are you from? Oregon.
I'm an Oregon boy, but
right.
I live in Seattle now.
Yeah, but you Oregon, that's some backwoods shit. You guys are fucking living different worlds.
It was straight up backwoods. I started off fighting in the grass, me and my buddies kicking the shit out of each other, and that's just how it's always been. And so I've just kind of been in since the beginning, even though it took me quite a long time to get out into the world of competition and everything, because I grew up in a really small town, and the only reason anything ever happened was because Eddie Bravo, and he kind of noticed me and kind of, sort of accepted me into 10th Planet. I kind of was somewhat adopted into 10th Planet. And so I don't know, man, I'm just a lucky son of a bitch is what it comes down to in the timing.
Man.
And I've just been consistent. I've just consistently trained since I was young, and that is going to bring you somewhere.
I think that's something because that's kind of the way I am. Like I've just, since I was, for as long as I can remember, like I started wrestling and, in high school, I started wrestling like 15 or 16, maybe a little bit younger. like since those, I was always an athletic kid, but I was always a gym rat. Like I was always, and then I started boxing. Then I boxed for freaking a long time. And then when I got done with boxing, I was like, oh man, I want to do something else. So I started doing jiu-jitsu. So like when you have that little bit of weirdness in you, or you have that little bit of sickness where you become that, you're like a lifelong martial artist, and you're constantly in search of competing and figuring out ways. And it's not even that you're doing it because you got anything to prove or something. You still got a little bit to prove, but I mean, it's just because like it's just what you do.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I grew up wrestling with my brother and my dad, and then wrestling with my homies, and then I've just always done it. It's just in me. Like I don't like. Why does an apple tree grow apples? I have no idea. It's just what it does. And that's
dead orchard, FYI, trademark.
That's right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, but that's true, man. That's cool. And like guys like yourself, like dudes out there that think they want to do some shit or think they want to freaking attain something, man. Like I'll tell you, man, there's hundreds and thousands and even millions of talented people out there. So everybody in the world has talent. There's some people that are extraordinarily talented, but unless you have the desire to use that talent, it's gonna go to waste, man. Unless you come in. So like I see lots of guys, and again, from being around shit as long as I have, I've seen dudes, and particularly in boxing, dudes that were the most talented people in the world that, for whatever reason couldn't get their shit together, ended up getting in trouble, or quit coming to the gym, or got a job and did something else in their lives. And then they wake up and it's 10, 15 years later and like, what the fuck happened? Like, it's not, talent is one thing, but I would almost take someone that has little to no talent, but has a desire and the ability to continue to come every day and wants to keep training and wants to get better and just realizes, then embraces that grind. Like that's a talent in and of itself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, for me, like it was just where I was happiest. It's like, it's when I was in the best mood, and that's when I felt the best throughout my days when I was training. And so it wasn't even a matter of like wanting to attain things or anything. It was just purely made me feel good. You know what I mean? And if anyone's ever dealt with depression, like the best thing you can do when you're depressed is go train,
right?
Or whatever else. So it's like also like just purely practical to train.
Right.
And then if you really do stick with it, crazy cool stuff can happen too.
Yeah. Do you train? How often are you training now? Are you training like 5 days a week, 6 days a week?
Yeah, right now 5 days a week. I mean, before I had my little girl, it's just like a little bit of a lull right now, because saving on daycare, I'm taking care of her and stuff like that.
Right.
But like as soon as I can take her to the gym with me,
it's
gonna. Usually I like to train three times a day, 5 days a week, and then I take the weekends off. And I don't necessarily train hard. I just try to train consistently and smart, and try to have fun, and try to stay healthy. But because I couldn't kill myself 3 times a day just training with everything I got. I just stay consistent. You know what I mean?
Do you find that
instead of 3 times a day?
Do you find that turning 30-ish is starting to kind of catch up to you a little bit? You feel like you need to cut back a little bit and kind of get your rest and things like that?
I haven't felt it quite yet. You know what I mean? Like,
35 is when it hit me, man.
Okay, right. See, and that's what I keep thinking is like, I'm going to push myself pretty hard until I'm about 35, and then I'm going to start fading out or whatever, which is fine because that's just a part of life. You know what I mean? And it'll be a relief someday. But right now, I still have the fire. I'm still super hungry. I'm still super healthy. And, and right now just building up a family is to tell you the truth, I like the extra challenge that it brings, that extra discipline I have to stay consistent with my training when I've got a bunch of other stuff going too, between running a business, taking care of my family. Look, man, anyone can be a good fighter when they have no responsibility.
Right.
But can you be a householder and a savage?
Right.
That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to
that's cool.
I'm trying to be a man. I'm not just trying to be, some kid who gets to fight all the time.
Right.
I'm trying to live life to the fullest and like the most well-rounded I can, and not just pigeonhole myself as a fighter, man. Like I want to be a full human being.
I find that
It's 50% Rocky Balboa, 50% Mr. Mom.
Yeah.
That is the ratio.
That's it, man. And that's the balance. And that's, hey, I
Yeah.
like that balance. You know, it's cool.
Kev, what do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk a little bit about Polaris? You guys want to talk a little bit about John Jones?
Yeah,
or,
we as like we are having Mr. Orchard on today primarily because he is set to join the Polaris Grand Prix.
Oh, that's awesome.
April 4th. He's going to be the lightest competitor competing that day. It's going to be insane, and we just want to know what mental illness drove you to do that.
Well, I mean, you hear
what mushroom did you eat and then decide that, oh, you know what I'm going to do?
I can't remember the exact quote, but it has something to do with when faced with life and death, choose death.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So and that's what Bushido is. That's the only way you can truly understand the way of the warrior is by choosing death. And so when the guys at Polaris hit me up, you know, and they said, hey, you'll be the smallest guy, and here's some of the names in it. I'm like, well, hot damn, like, I'm going to go die, you know? Now, or I might win. That'd be great, you know? But I'm not going to cower away from a big, scary match or a big, scary guy, because that's not what I'm in this for, you know? And again, I want to go boldly to my death. I'm not just trying to, you know, live my days out and run away from everything, you know. Let's go out in a blaze of glory, you know. So, and again, that sounds, you know, a little dramatic or romanticized, but that's just my mentality. I can't help it. It's the way I've always been, and I'm just gonna go face first at it. That's how I live my whole life, you know.
That's cool too, man. You know,
life and how I just live in every way. I just go face first.
There's a freeing element to having nothing to lose, and having no expectations. It means, why not? And what the hell are you gonna worry about? I mean, it's actually, in my opinion, sometimes a benefit and a helping element.
Sure.
Just because now, like, all of the anguish and all the anxiety is on the guy who's supposed to smash you. You know what I mean? Like, because now they're thinking, well, shit, if this guy beats me, you know. And I'm not saying that that's the case with you, but being the underdog and being the smallest guy in the competitor, or the smallest guy in the event, you know.
No, I have the least amount of pressure, you know, for that reason. But I also have the least amount of pressure because what does it even matter? You know what I mean? What matters to me is going out and fighting my hardest. That's it. That's like all I care about. It doesn't even matter. Of course, everyone wants to win,
right?
But I'd rather do more than win. Is like give it everything I got and know that I didn't bitch out. You know?
What's the rule format? Is it sub only?
It's sub. Yeah, I'm not even sure. It's a judging system,
right?
So
yeah.
I don't know, man. I just show up.
Well, sub only, and then some kind of ref decision, probably, maybe, or who knows.
Honestly, I don't change my style
on
based rules, and that's one reason that, like, maybe I don't do well in certain organizations or whatever else.
But size kind of, the factor of size kind of loses a little bit of effectiveness when points isn't factor. You know what I mean? Because now you don't have to worry about some big fat dude passing your guard or whatever. You know what I mean? They're trying to take down a behemoth to score points and shit like that. You can just play your game and open up.
Yeah, and if I don't know if you guys paid attention, but last year I did this tournament called the Shugyo Invitational, and it was a tournament of no time limit matches. I had 4 no time limit matches.
I remember that when it came out. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like that's how I fight no matter what I'm in.
Right.
You know, I could go to IBJJF and I'm still just going to go out there and try to submit.
Right.
My guard, and ultimately I don't care because I've got 1,000 attacks from bottom side control, believe it or not. Like, I don't care. It doesn't matter where I'm going to attack. You know, it's all good.
Yeah, you definitely have an attacking. You're definitely an exciting grappler, man. You definitely have an attacking style. It's fun to watch, man. You go out there and freaking bring it, man. It's cool. It's fun to watch you attack or train.
When I watch my matches, I almost always, and this is how I wrestled too. My coaches hated it, but I would almost always end up in what looked like bad position, and then I flip it around on you. You know what I mean? So that's just part of my style, which will play into these bigger, stronger guys thinking they get to a good place. I've got some tricks up my sleeve, and I believe I can tap anyone I get on the mats with. You know, it doesn't matter to me. You know?
Nate, have you ever heard of American distance runner named Steve Prefontaine.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's from Oregon. He's an Oregon boy. He went to university.
Yeah, that's why I asked. You're kind of giving off pre vibes right now with the way you're talking, just because he is a quote machine. Like, he has some of the best quotes maybe ever, just in terms of crazy athlete people. And I think the one that he said that I think applies the most here is the best pace to run is a suicide pace, and today looks like a good day to die.
That's a good one.
Yeah. I'm like, Mr. Orchard is on a suicide pace.
That's awesome, man.
Shit.
That's awesome, man.
We're all headed to our death. You know what I mean? Let's at least have some fun before it happens. So
I like Polaris a lot, man. I love that event. I think they do a good job with it. I love London. I like the idea. It's freaking. It's another cool one, man. They do a good job, because Sai and Polaris, I think, are the two best run, best production value events going around. Well, EBI obviously too, but like there's not as many EBIs anymore, and I just want to see them go back to fucking.
Well, Eddie said they're coming back. You know,
well, when I say EBI, I mean combat jiu-jitsu EBI, like combat jiu-jitsu stuff too. But like those three guys put on the best shows right now. They understand the important elements of what makes something good. You got to have a decent amount of production value. You have a nice stage. You have a professional atmosphere, good cameras, something like that. Fight to win is good too, but they're kind of like a lower end, like funneling to these bigger events. And Seth is gonna, if he hears this, he'll probably shoot me a nasty text message. But
I actually I had my first fight to win last year, and I really loved it, man.
I love the event. It's awesome. It's fucking awesome.
But no, you're right. Those are the three big stages, and then obviously beyond that is ADCC.
Right,
what I mean? But
ADCC though, I think, is more like the fighters didn't appreciate that. You know what I mean? I think it's more about like, oh shit, you won the trials, cool. You know what I mean? Oh shit. You know what I mean? I think there's more of an element of like, it's the one that the fighters really appreciate. When I think of spectators and the grander appeal of what I feel jiu-jitsu is growing into, or blah 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 blah, I think of Kasai and Polaris and EBI.
Yeah.
But ADCC is definitely like, that's the like
definitely to the fighters.
Yeah, 100%, man. If you just win them trials, like, it means you're like in another level of grappler, just like that, just for competing there, and rightfully so, man. Particularly now, dude. God, dude. Again, I've been doing the trials for quite some time now. I keep saying I got one more year. We'll see. I might fucking die pretty soon. But
hey, choose death.
I'm really competing well right now, man. I'm really competing well. I think this is probably gonna be the last run at it, but whatever, no big deal.
Oh man.
But the point of the matter is when I think about when I think about like how the trials have evolved from God back 10 years ago, man. Like, it was to where they are now. It's so much harder to win this fucking thing.
My first trials, was like a 16-man bracket.
Yeah, I know. Now there's 160.
124 guys in 77 kilos of the West Coast trials last year.
Man. What do you think about that, man? Do you think they should have some kind of a qualifying referendum, or just I mean, maybe not even a qualifier for the qualifier, but I don't know, man. You just say anybody can show up, because it's cool. Because the problem is this is what happens. Everyone there is tough, but like some people, whatever, really don't have a legitimate shot of winning it, and like now the problem is the guys that do have to sift their way through an extra 3 assholes instead of fighting. No, but I mean, whatever. Instead of having to have 4 matches to win it, you got to have 6 now, and 6 intense fucking matches. And even the guys that like aren't really great are still pain in the asses. You know what I mean? It's still some big, cock-strong purple belt.
This is sort of a minor thing, but the more matches you have, regardless of skill level, the more opportunities for injury.
Or just some guy getting lucky. You know what I mean? You fall into some armbar and fuck, this asshole armbarred me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
What do you think
and now
about
Tommy, no one gives a shit. O'Malley is like going off to fight in the
to go get smashed by fucking whoever, whatever. Yeah.
How about this? I think the automatic qualifier that should be adopted by every organization is if you have a dope move named after you, automatic to the pre-trial. Like
I'm cool with that. Let's do that.
I wonder why you'd be cool with that.
I gotta come up with something called the Uncle Coach Kevin. Is it like fucking tickling some fucking like some female student and making her uncomfortable?
the gala go no.
Am I in? That was horrible. We're gonna lose viewers for that.
I do have to ask about. I feel like we'd be remiss if we did not ask you about your move. You know, the Dead Orchard. You're probably sick of talking about.
Hold on. Answer the question about the ADCC first. We'll get to the Dead Orchard in a minute.
Well, okay. So first of all, with the whole there's one side of it which is like, look, if you are a gangster, you're a gangster and you should win it. Doesn't matter who shows up or how many show up that day. But on the other hand, it's like, well, can't we just do brown belts and up?
Right. Or, but that too, but the fucking tournament takes 12 hours. You know what I mean? The West Coast Trials was a goddamn disaster.
And there was one bathroom.
Right.
There was one bathroom,
Jesus
dude.
Christ, man. Dude, I went to a combat jiu-jitsu event there, the first title for Absolute, whatever the fuck it was. And I remember when they said they were having the West Coast Trials in the Metrex building. And I thought to myself, they're what? Like, that place is so small and there's like nothing there. There's going to be like 2,000 people showing up. It's going to be a disaster.
It was essentially, but it was also, I suppose, a memorable experience.
Right, exactly. Well, yeah, so is fucking beating cancer, but it doesn't necessarily mean I want to do it again. You know what I mean? Like, not that I ever had cancer, but you get the general idea. God, please don't strike me down with cancer. I'm very sorry.
He doesn't even have cancer. Jesus.
Poor analogy, but you get the idea.
For a second there, I'm like, Jesus, Kev, I never knew.
I wanted to make sure that I straightened that out so I didn't like wrongfully receive cancer survivor, Kevin. I never knew, you're so strong. I wanted to just get that out. I never had cancer. Kevin Gallagher never had cancer. Can we have that official, please? Jesus.
Oh shit. Oh,
but is there really an answer to that? I just think that the event planners need to just get it dialed in. The last time they had the trials at the Anaheim Convention Center, and it went pretty well, when they had the big ones out there. And then they always do the East Coast trials at that high school, up in Jersey. And the Blast is a part of that. And he usually does a pretty good job of running in and out of there. But as this thing continues to grow, because God, if this next year, I can't imagine what it's going to be like next year. I just can't imagine. It's going to be insane.
Hopefully they get it figured out.
Yeah. So, hopefully we can figure it out. And I guess where I stand is fuck, dude, it sucks. But at the end of the day, there's a reason why it's the most prestigious, competition in all of grappling,
Exactly. And man, as shitty as it is to have that many guys, if you win that tournament that day, dude, you're better than 124 other people just the pride in that is you can take that your whole life, man.
Yeah. It's cool, man. It's always one of my favorite things to do is to get my shit together and go do the trials every 2 years, just because it's cool now. I've had a couple good showings out there, but I enjoy it. It's fun. I get to see the same people. I get to run into dudes and just be a part of that amazing event. It's pretty fucking cool.
It sounds like the number of people keeps just growing exponentially. They'll have to figure out something to do because they won't be able to have 300 people in a bracket because that's what's going to end up happening. Because now also the venue size is going to have to increase. I don't know how they do that, but
shoot. Well, hopefully they win the last one. That's all.
Yeah. What I don't know, Kev. You got anything else? Man, I'm getting tired.
Well, yeah, I was wondering if we could talk about the
my bad. Sorry,
bit,
yeah,
just because it's so cool. Grace Gundrum uses it to murder absolutely young
You ever
person
roll with
she
her,
goes
Grace?
up against?
Maybe, but it was a while ago. She was a lot smaller, but like now I hear, I think when I rolled with her back in the day, man, I was like, the reason you're not a black belt is because you're a little kid. But
Right.
like,
Yeah.
it's like rolling with a black belt.
Yeah, she's like a phenom.
Like the
I
technique
like what's his name? His coach. I always forget his damn name, and I don't want to say it wrong.
There's John Michael Holland and then Zach Matt.
Zach's a cool cat. We had him on. He had him on other podcasts before. He's cool. I was up there training with Thor a couple months ago out in Allentown with my buddy.
Oh, John.
Yeah, he was pretty cool, man. John Blank or whatever. So hey, but Dead Orchard. Tell us about how you came up with that.
Well, man, to tell you the truth, it was a complete accident. And I was actually trying to do something that we call the pump. But I just had such long legs that I had to like do something extra with them. And I ended up just triangling them. And someone did it like in one of the early UFCs once. And then it kind of like disappeared off the earth for a minute. And then me and a couple other guys, we just started all actually kind of doing that at the same time. But it just so happened that like I hit the most, like I just like made the most noise about it as far as like who I was tapping with it and how consistently I was. And so one day, we actually got on the back in the day, 10thplanetjj.com, the 10th Planet forum was like, that's where all the guys were, we were all on the forum. And so I get on there one day and I'm like, hey guys, we should think of a name for this move that we're all doing. And so everyone starts, oh, you should call it the Angry Orchard. We should call it this or that. I had some other ridiculous name for it, but Eddie Bravo gets on and goes, he just like says Dead Orchard. And that was it. It just stopped. Like,
that's awesome. I think someone that is way cooler and way more creative than us should animate that. I think it would be a perfect animation of like Eddie Bravo in the corner, just like he's like sitting in the lotus style, like a monk, and then just like Dead Orchard, like come out of his mouth and just kind of go, oh.
That's basically what happened. You know what I mean? And then I went on, and I got Barrett Yoshida with it at EBI. Yeah. And I think in the last combat jiu-jitsu. So, I hit it twice. I think I got 2 or 3 last year. We got
a guy in my gym that runs it a lot. This guy, Jeff Perret, one of our black belts that likes that move a lot. He's a big fan of yours, by the way.
Oh, well,
shout out to Jeff Perret.
That's awesome. No, it's crazy, man. I get tagged in a Dead Orchard video every single weekend from someone all over the world. Like it's probably the most common submission from rubber guard.
For those of you that aren't aware, Nathan, you want to give us a little breakdown of what the Dead Orchard entails?
I might splice in a video of you doing it.
Explain it, but I might sound like I'm speaking gibberish because I have to use the 10th Planet terminology.
That's fine.
Basically, if you go rubber guard, which you're just pulling your leg over their shoulder, sort of a thing, and then what I do is, it sounds so funny to say, but one of the way I started getting into it was, okay, you have mission control, which is where you kick your one leg up, but then if you kick your second leg up in front of that one, so you have both legs in that rubber guard, position, that's called crackhead control, because I guess it's strong enough to control a crackhead. I don't know. And then what happens is you start pumping their elbows. So most people, when they're, like in your guard, their elbows are kind of flared, but you pump their elbows in so they go inside of their hip line. And then it's basically a double arm triangle.
Right.
So like a triangle choke, you only have one arm trapped. A Dead Orchard, you have 2 arms trapped, but then you turn it into an arm bar.
Right.
That's
because both of the arms are, you're so isolated because it's so tight, and both of the arms are trapped in. It's very, you can't move anywhere any of the arms, really and you feel like you're cool because you're like, oh, I'm not getting triangled because both my arms are in. I must be okay. And then you try to posture up, and all of a sudden you're getting arm barred. It's really cool, man. It's a very innovative.
There's
move.
levels, like sometimes you make people fall into it themselves. Other times you have to kind of force your way into it.
Yeah.
But it's still evolving, man. Like there's still like little nuances that are changing, and I mean, just like jiu-jitsu in general, but it's just cool I can't remember what it was from, some movie or something that I've recently seen where they said you have 2 deaths. your first death is when you die, and your second death is the last time someone speaks your name.
Oh, wow.
And so I was just like, damn, like I'll live a little bit longer just from the dead orchard.
Cool,
like
I
might have a little bit of a legacy, which egoically, man, feels cool. You know,
I
what
love
can I
that,
say?
man. It's such a killer fucking thing to
man.
say, man. Like, it's such a fucking warrior thing to say, man. Like when I die, they'll remember my name.
I now have a running theory that you, Nate Orchard, used to be Musashi in a previous life, and you just died on a mountain from stomach cancer after saying some cool shit.
Well, you know what? We're all Musashi in one way or another, I suppose.
Hey, that's a Musashi is shit thing to say though. So you're not defending yourself really well there, samurai.
Well, that's a massive compliment. Thank you.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Well, I know you probably got to get going soon, but I did want to end on one thing that I always intended to ask the first 10th Planet specific guy that we had on. And that's just if you have any sort of relationship to the gi, if you have any thoughts on it as a form of jiu-jitsu, as a sport, as in terms of self-defense, like, do you ever dabble?
I have dabbled, and let me just tell you my personal experience. This is my most recent experience in the gi. Is I was at an open mat, and there was this guy. He weighed about 205 pounds. And he was like a 4-stripe brown belt, but he was known for his gi grips. Okay. And so me being a guy who's trained very little, maybe 4 or 5 hours in the gi total, I wanted to see what like good gi grips meant. I was like, what does that look like? So I throw on a gi top and we roll. And in 10 minutes, he gi choked me one time. I mean, he positionally pretty much crushed me. You know what I mean? He was a big guy, very strong. He was really able to control me, but he barely could tap me, and it was with the gi choke that whatever excuse you want, I wasn't familiar with it. Fine. But then we take the gi off, and I tap him 4 times in 5 minutes. So that's my science that I have behind it. You know what I mean? As far as like total practical application, it doesn't necessarily, just because you're good at the gi, it doesn't mean you're good at no gi. But you can also be good at no gi, throw a gi on and wreck some fools too. Like, again, I don't train in the gi, but the couple times that I have, man, I can gi choke the piss out of people, and I have no idea what I'm doing, just because I understand like, body mechanics and things like that. I kind of just make it up as I go, and it works. But ultimately, I would say that I just prefer no gi more. It's more fun, but it's just like, what do you like to do? Like that's what people should do. I am biased, and I would say that if you're really good no gi, you'll hold your own in the gi. But if you're really, really good in the gi, you can take the gi off and your game can fall apart. In fact, I have a friend who he's a rapper, and he made like a jiu-jitsu song. And one of his lines was, "I see you grabbing for my collar, but I clearly do no gi." And it is funny to watch people's game sometimes, like they're reaching for collars that are not there. And I'm like, yo, that gi's not really serving you right now. No gi. So I don't know. Like,
I'll say this, and this is what I'll say about that. I mean, because I have been, I say lucky enough, but I've been lucky enough to train equal in the gi and no gi throughout the course of the entirety of my jiu-jitsu career. And I'm by no means a specialist in both. I enjoy training the gi. People tell me they think I'm better in the gi than I am in no gi, but I don't. I've also had people that tell me I'm better in no gi. It does make some difference to me.
Sure.
My game is very similar in both. My game and my no gi game, and my game and my gi game are very similar, with the exception of a few gi chokes and blah 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 blah. But it's just a matter of understanding how to use jiu-jitsu. Like understanding how to. Okay, well, I'm going to pass this way. So instead of just holding onto the hip, I'll just grab this pant leg. You know what I mean? Or like, oh, he's got my arm. You have to kind of get used to breaking grips and shit like that. But once you figure that out, man, it's not much different at all.
Yeah.
Thinking in a jiu-jitsu, in the same train of thought, like if I'm training for a no-gi match, I will, if there's a gi class going on, I'm not going to say, hey, I'm not going to take this class. I will throw a gi on and train, because it's all about learning to think and use jiu-jitsu while you're training, right?
You said it. You said it right there, man. It's like, look, as long as you're learning how to think, because then you can apply your technique to any rule set, whether it's gi, no gi, a stick, a knife, a bat, whatever. You know, it's like the principles of combat, and so yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense what you say, man. I'd have to agree with you there for sure.
The one thing I'll say the most about this when we talk about which is better, which is more effective, and this is not saying one is better than the other or anything you want to say. I'll say this. I personally am of the belief that if you take two people and one guy trains specifically in the gi and one guy trains specifically in no gi and they both get their black belt, I believe that the competitor that trained no gi will do better with a gi on than vice versa. I believe that the competitor that strictly trained in the gi, once you take that gi off, it will take them quite a bit of time to understand the idea that, wow, I can't just grab this sleeve here. I have to grab an arm, or I can't just grab, a grip here. I have to grab the wrist, or I have to get an underhook or an overhook. Whereupon it's easier to translate from someone that has done no gi to say, oh, fuck, he's holding my grip here. What do I do? Just rip this fucking thing off and get an underhook now. That's my opinion on it in terms of who I don't give a fuck what you do. I think people should train the gi, but it doesn't matter to me. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like I think you could be
you know what I mean?
Right.
Fuck it. Ultimately, like just do what you enjoy.
Right.
Depends on what your goals are, of course.
Exactly.
But
of course.
but
that's my perception on how I believe the two stare up to one another. I just think that it's whatever. All right, homie. Cool. Nate, man, you've been cool, dude. Kev, let's get the fuck out of here. I'm tired, man. That was the first F-bomb I made this.
For having me on.
Yeah.
All right.
Nathan,
well,
thank you, buddy, for coming on. You got anything you want to pitch to? Anybody you want to say hey to? Any sponsors or anything you want to talk about?
I mean, the two sponsors that are very close to my heart, Phalanx. I've been repping them most of my black belt career, and then I have another sponsor that we kind of sponsor each other rather, and that's Game of Rolls. It's a really cool card game that helps you kind of diversify your training. Definitely go follow Game of Rolls. Go check it out. It's just another way to kind of mix it up and maybe learn something.
Cool, man.
I'm staring at two different Magic the Gathering decks on my desk right now. So I'm
Game of Rolls.
I'm a happy boy right now. I know what I'm gonna do. All right,
fucking nerds.
This has been episode 10 of the Jiu-Jitsu Times podcast. Thank you very much to Nathan Orchard for coming on, and to all you out there, whether it's gi, whether it's no gi, don't stop training. All right,
damn it. Right.
Go do some jiu-jitsu, damn it. We gotta have Mr. Jiu-Jitsu on here at some point to shame all of us into training more. All right. See you, everybody.
See ya.